In this video, we'll continue in the steps to prepare for a migration from Joomla 1.5 to Joomla 3. I call it clean out your closets because we're getting ready to move. We're going to look at our site and make sure that we have the most recent version of 1.5. If you're not at 1.5.26, you need to do a Joomla update following the directions at joomla.org for making sure that you're up to date with the newest version. And then the next step is to go in and use your Akiba backup and make a backup. Just back up now. This is our prior to migration backup. The backup is completed, and I'm going to go back and administer my backup files. I'm wanting to take a look at where those files are located, and I see that I'm already using a remote storage for those backup files. I have my default set up with most of my sites backing up to an Amazon S3 server up in the cloud, so that's in good shape. I don't need to worry about getting rid of files from my server here. They're already somewhere else. If you had your Akiba backup backing up locally, you may want to go over to your cPanel and look in your file structure. The default location for Akiba backup is under Administrator, Components, Akiba, Backup. And if you had any backup files in here, I would suggest that you download, using the File Manager tool, that you download the most recent one, or maybe two, and then delete the rest of them. We don't need to be moving into our Joomla 3 site a long history of backup files. In my case, my backups were going somewhere else already. I don't need to worry about that. So back to the back end of Joomla, we've taken a backup. If something should go wrong now, we have a way back. We can get back to where we started. We want to take a look in our article manager, and the structure here was that the manager was one thing and the trash was something else. So if the trash is empty, that's good. Otherwise we would delete. I see that I have a bunch of things that are not published. I have some older articles that are not published. There's no point in my migrating those unless it was so recent. It may be a page that I'm wanting to bring back. This site is for an event that happens once a year in October. We may unpublish a registration form and then republish that at a later time. So I certainly don't need to go back 2 years for registration information. I'm going to take most of these and clear them out. I have a 2013 sponsors article here as well as a 2014 sponsors article. I don't need this old unpublished article to be migrated. So I'm going to trash those. I kept track of one as a reference point for rebuilding the next, another registration page if we need to. Be thoughtful. Sometimes when you move from one house to another, you take along some old treasure because it might have some value, but we don't need to take all of the junk. So I'm now going to go back to my article trash and delete. The next thing to do is to check into your category manager. Are there any categories that you're not using? Info, vendors, sponsorships, registration. Pretty simple structure here. And my section manager, again, I'm looking for things that are not in use. I'm looking for junk that may be lying around that I could clean up the database. I want to take a look in my menu manager. Do I have things there that are not published? Just one. How about in my menu trash? Oh, there's a whole bunch of things in the menu trash. Do I need to be moving all of this going forward? I think not. If they were trashed, they were trashed for a reason. I'm not going to move them along with me. Now in the menu manager, I'm scanning to make sure that things don't look like they would have the same alias. In Joomla 1.5, it was possible for things to have duplicates. The alias, it wasn't so picky. Now we're very picky about not having anything with identical aliases. And we'll know when we get into Joomla 3 if there were any issues. But as I just scan down this, I don't see multiple articles that look like they would be duplicates. So we've cleaned up sections, categories, articles. We've cleaned up our menu and emptied the menu trash. We need to take a look at our module manager and see if there's things there that we could discard. Whatever this module was, we don't need it anymore. Again, keep in mind that there may be things that you've disabled on a time basis that you want to keep because you're going to bring it back when it's appropriate. But in this case, this is a sponsor who no longer is the sponsoring organization for the event. And these will be reinstalled. We weren't using them anyway. I'm going to delete those modules. So we've cleaned out our content. And now would be a really good time to go back, maybe run another backup, but definitely notify your client, notify the users that going forward, changes that they make, in the next days or week are going to be lost because you're in the midst of this migration. We're going to take a snapshot of this database here in a few minutes, and if they go in and add new content or make edits to existing content, those changes are not going to be reflected in the migration. Once we do our migration, we've captured a snapshot of that database, and any further changes that they make are not going to be reflected. So make sure that you notify the users that you're doing this and that they either stop making changes until you tell them that you're ready to go to work on the new site, or that they, at the very minimum, keep track of changes that they've made. The Joomla Docs has a link to an article about very complex websites with the need to have constantly changing content during the migration process. And I just would refer you to that if that's your instance. But on a simple website, I think everyone can take a couple days out, take a week off, or if they need to be making changes, they just need to keep a log of what those changes are. You're not updating the live site, you're updating in a subdomain or in a development domain, and there will be the opportunity to copy and paste from the old to the new once the migration is underway.